Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unreal Engine live stream. I'm your host, Alexander Paschall, and joining me today are Mike, Zach, and Lauren. We have a full house today, and we have a lot to cover with new Unreal Engine's VR editor developments. But first, it's the news. So, as a lot of you have probably already noticed, Unreal Engine 4.14 Preview 1 just went live. It is on your launcher now. Some of you that have been on GitHub have already probably seen this kind of rolling out and happening in the background, so you already knew this was coming. But for those of you that didn't, here it is. Go out, pick it up, check out the new stuff. We've got a forward shading renderer for VR, which is experimental. Bunch of new features in the rendering world here. You can see massive list, huge list. Come out to the forums and check it out. It's really a lot. It's almost like release notes all in of itself, but we'll get to those eventually, and we'll have Mike here come back on to actually talk about this in full detail.
Yeah, don't spoil everything here. This is getting more and more verbose every release, man.
I'm so sorry. You're going to come on next time and be like, well, Alex already mentioned all these, so
We'll make it fun. We'll make it fun again somehow.
yeah, we'll do something cool for it. So
They're not exhaustive yet either, I don't think, so.
yeah, plus, you know, we have a lot of new stuff coming out that that's probably not even listed on here, so we'll check that all out in a future stream, but go download it now. It's awesome. Thank you, Steven, for getting this out.
Yep.
I always love that our release notes are like a phone book. It's
Yeah.
I know somebody printed the docs one time. I wonder if you'd print the release notes, you would have a couple of books going.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's a mobile bandwidth destroyer.
Especially when we're like, pretty
data,
gifts.
data plan deleter.
I'm trying to fathom why you would print the doc.
I mean, haven't you seen it? It's like four
You could build a
giant
fort out of it.
encyclopedias worth of books. It was massive, and that was like a year ago, so I'm sure that it's massive now, even bigger.
Yeah.
All right, so get on that, people.
A lot of dead trees.
All right, up next, we only have a couple items on the news. The first one was that, it's the big one. Other item is, if you are in Italy or nearby Milan or Rome in Italy, we have a couple of mixers happening coming up October 26th and 27th. You can come onto the forums, the events section. This is currently pinned up as a sticky, but yep, just Milan and Italy. We're going to have, I think it's Sjord and, Sjord and Louis Cataldi will be out there. They're going to give some talks. They're going to, you know, mostly just kind of be there to talk to you. And they're also going to do like a pretty brief intro to Unreal type talk, I believe. But come out there, meet them, say hi, give them your feedback. They're really, really cool guys. It's just a lot of fun to actually go out and physically meet you and get your feedback in face to face. So come on out. Check it out if you're in Italy.
I should have gone to both of those.
I think we should all be invited.
Yeah, exactly.
In Italy?
Like, do we have time to get tickets and just
VR editor demo.
Yeah.
For the mixer, yeah. I mean, why not?
Is that the,
Well, according to this,
free
the
snacks
mix.
and drinks.
Yeah, the mixer's like 3.5 hours. So I mean, if I showed up like a week in advance and then left like a week later, I think that's enough adjustment time.
Yeah,
Gotta prep,
you gotta
right?
account
Gotta be prepared.
for the jet lag and beach lag, because you have to check out the beaches and you know the
That doesn't
scenery
sound professional.
and all that. No, it's a medical thing. It's really real.
It's for
Super
photo
real.
reference.
Yeah.
Is
Is
this
this photogrammetry off your cell phone? Right? It's totally real.
is this the first mixer we've done from Italy?
I'm not sure if this is the first in Italy.
It's the first I remember.
but I really haven't heard of us having like a major presence there. I know that we go to the events in Italy, but
Yeah.
this is our I think this one might be one of our first big ones that we're actually taking
Sweet.
part in. But it's it's AASVI. I mean, they might be pronounced ASV, but they're also sponsoring and running everything. Here's their website, really quick. Zoom in, it's in Italian, so I
was gonna say that's in Italian.
I was just going to say really quick here, if you can read this, you know what they're about. I unfortunately could not decipher that, nor did anybody let me know.
Or you could click
There's
that Google Translate button.
But-
in the corner.
Yeah, so it could be translated like backwards to me. Sure. I don't trust that thing anymore.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. So that's the news that we got today. Next up, we have community spotlights. Oh, great! It did that thing where it double clicks and it just double exited out of the thing. So I'm just gonna type that up real fast because I know where that is. Boop. All right. Yeah. Don't really, Clint.
Get it together.
I'm
man.
blaming you.
Wait,
Get
did
it
you
right
use
there.
all F4?
Yeah. Shut up. Yes, we'd like to start this thing off by jumping over to the Answer Hub and checking out all of the Karma earners. Basically, if you come over to answers.unrealengine.com, answer people's questions, help them out, comment, upvote, get upvoted, you start building up karma. This karma point system allows people to know that, yeah, you've been super helpful, and if you have the top karma earned in the past 7 days, you show up here in this week's top karma high score list. So.
And you are amazing for helping so much.
I recognize a lot of those names from like Twitch chats too, so lots of good community people there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Night Watcher is often in chat. I think Death Ray might come out, but there's Shadow River, of course. Shadow River's always up on here, and he's always in chat. I can see him right now actually posting, so that's cool. But we'd like to say thanks to Gigasite Media, Death Ray, and Night Watcher being our top 3. As a reward, your forum accounts will be upgraded with little forum badges. But Death Ray and Night Watcher, you guys have been on here so much. I think you've prestiged already. So you guys are just really earning bonus points. So thank you for that. Thank you a lot. I'll have to come up with like a double prestige or something because it's, pretty impressive to see these guys up here. But Gigasite Media, I think you might be completely new. So congratulations, you're getting a new badge. Pew, pew. It's going to be sharp.
Congrats.
So,
Cool.
Thank you
Good
all.
job.
And for those of you who didn't quite make it, keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate the help. You'll make it up there. I believe in you. Really, it's awesome. Okay, next up are our community spotlights. Phew. So, Dwaros is our first community spotlight here. It's a Kickstarter. I like to definitely jump on Kickstarters before they end and as they're kind of getting into the heat of it. This one actually has hit its goal, but you can still jump in and get awesome prizes from Kickstarting. I really love that about Kickstarters. You get cool and unique stuff. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here. As you can see, it's got city building elements. It's a fun, pretty game. It has that really cool hand-painted style to it. It's a lot of, I want to say, kind of building and building up your town, etc. But it leads into exploring and puzzles and building up heroes and all of that. So it becomes one of those like, I want to kind of describe it as you build a fully fledged D&D kind of world after a while. It's kind of neat in that way. And then you can see.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
There's a ton of features, a ton of ways to kind of get stuff done. And so it has a really interesting feel to it because there's such a wide variety of things to do and an interesting perspective like that. So please.
It's like Viva Pinata style meets like, you remember like ActRaiser for
Yeah.
SNES?
Yeah.
I was
Adventuring with city building.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of like WoW plus like a city builder or something. It's like a lot of different stuff all put together very very cleanly, I'd say. But come check out all of these different pledges you can make. There's a bunch of very cool stuff where they, this is what I like about Kickstarter is you can pledge in enough and they'll put a character in or name a monument after you or something like that. So hop in now, get something cool, exclusives, and get your name in there and all that. So Dwaros, really neat game, awesome UE4 project. Next up, there's no pretty pictures for this one because it's a little bit more technical, but I do have a YouTube channel to show you in 1 second. So this one came to me a little while back, and I've got it through my queue now, but we have a complex slot-based inventory system tutorial created by Game Dev 005. But here's the thing. Check out this list of features that you end up building. So it's huge, and it becomes like this massive, almost, I want to say it's a little similar to the Diablo 2 kind of inventory. When you're done with it all, you end up with like hotkeys and like a inventory with lots of slot spaces and the like size-based slotting or not. It's up to you how you want to design it. But this is one of my favorite kind of tutorial spotlights because it's ongoing. It's still going. I think that like if you actually check on here, it was just like a few days ago. This one just got like another update. Let me see. Yeah, this is them posting.
Oh, part 16.
Yeah, parts 16, 17, 18,
Wow.
19, 20, 24. So,
Oh, I'm having flashbacks.
oh yeah, just really reminding you of going out there and making them yourself, huh? But yeah, so this one was just a few days ago. But if you come on here, Unreal Game Dev, spelled G-A-I-M-E, Unreal Game Dev, is a site. There's all the like tutorials listed here, very cleanly put together. But what I was saying about this is it's massive, broken up into nice digestible chunks, and you end up with a full, thorough inventory system. Like I said, it's not like 101 gorgeous images and all that, but it's the technical aspect of it that I really like. I think there are a couple of smaller screenshots somewhere in here.
Alex, do you know if
But-
it's Blueprint based or C++?
Yeah, this is Blueprint.
Okay.
And
Very cool.
uses widgets, uses just the full shebang of stuff. Yeah, I could have sworn there was an image or two, but I must be wrong there. But still, technically, very interesting with all the things you can do to it.
It's a ton of features.
It's a ton of features. Like, you can just kind of read over it, and it's like all those great inventory mechanics that you're just used to seeing. And I think that's nice. Like, any tutorial that says, let's bring it up to the gold standard of how these mechanics should work, those are my favorite kinds, especially when broken up into digestible chunks. So there you go. And again, there's the playlist. All right, finally, I'd like to throw this one at you here. Grizzly32 was telling me about his game here that got put up on Steam. And this one is completely ready to buy and all that, but this is Bow Mage. This is actually, you'll probably recognize some chunks of it. Is that a wall or is that a default material? I think I just noticed it.
It's just a nice tiling texture.
Don't you
point that out.
No, actually, it is actually
Yeah.
a tile. It is a tile texture. It's the same tile texture here, but it's like that looks similar to that default.
Don't
We have good taste in defaults. That's all it is.
But yeah, it's this very cool little bow and arrow tower defense style VR game. It's not totally unlike the tutorials that we've done here before with Sam and Wes on, where they showed you how to. I think it was Sam and Wes that
Yeah,
did
they
the
did the
bow
bow
and
and
arrow.
arrow.
Yeah, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. And so it's kind of taking a lot of that to the next level. But I'm positive they started it before we were even showing you those. But so if you want to learn how to do something similar, we have tutorials. But it's just a cool idea. I love it. You have like your pedestal you're on. There's bad guys coming through lanes all around you. You got to take them out, and it's very simple kind of setup. But it becomes very what's sort of distressing as they're coming at you from all sides.
First person tower defense kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. It's very and that becomes hectic as the lanes start filling up, and you're like, who do I shoot first? Who do I shoot first? And so yeah, check out Bow Mage out here on the Steam just Steam. Pick it up. It's $10. It's cool.
Yeah, looks great.
Phew. All right, and then that's the last item there, isn't it? So now we have a ton of awesome VR stuff to show off. I'm gonna pass off the driving controls here so that you may drive, sir. And
Cool.
I'm just gonna check chat. If you have any questions for everybody here, I'm watching chat. I'm grabbing the questions and throwing them into the Q&A portion. So ask away. I'm sorry, you go right ahead.
Cool.
Kind of interrupted you there.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start off just like a quick overview, maybe of not everyone might know or have used VR Editor, so we'll just do kind of a quick overview with these guys, and then Zach's gonna suit up for us. He's volunteered graciously. Yesterday we just kind of surprised it on him.
Surprise! Want help?
It's true.
He's not coming on last minute though.
So he's gonna suit up and demo some features while we all kind of just.
I'm gonna suit up and be in VR.
We'll discuss the
Yeah.
features, and Alex will watch chat, and if questions come up, maybe we can just ad lib. And then at the end, we'll talk maybe about some of the more forward-looking things that certainly aren't implemented yet, but we're interested in doing a little bit later, along with some of the challenges actually with creative tools in VR that we've run into. That we have yet to solve, or we're working on solutions to, or we could use advice from you guys about how to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So without further ado, we'll go into the slides. So VR Editor kind of appeared in I think it was a 4.12 was experimental, right? That was the first release.
The first binary release.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
because it was in GitHub for a while.
That's right.
Before that, that's why I was had to think about it.
yeah. So we had a very experimental version in 4.12, and every release we've been kind of improving it, and maybe even more kind of just changing how it works a little bit under the hood, so that it can be set up to be even more useful in the future. That's kind of actually been a lot of what we've been doing the past like four months or so since we showed it at GDC. So first thing, it's experimental. It's kind of hidden away. You don't see it by default, even if you have hardware plugged in. So just know that if you want to turn it on, there's a project setting that you go, or no, editor preference.
And under preference,
Editor
yeah.
preference. Yep.
Where is it actually?
Go under editor preferences. Go under experimental. Scroll down to the bottom under the VR group,
Right.
and you're good.
Yeah.
And then this toolbar icon will just appear on your level editor toolbar, and you can kind of just click it.
Mhm.
Or I think by default in 4.13.
Mhm. If you put on the headset, it will put you into VR mode.
As an option,
Yeah.
you can set it up so that when you put your Rift on, it'll
So
Reddit.
that's just a new feature. So it just kind of throws you in there if you put it on, and if you take it off, it ejects you out automatically. And hopefully kind of leaves you kind of where you were. Okay, so anyways, you can try it out. It's in 4.12 and 4.13, and we've made improvements for 4.14. We support Oculus Rift with touch, and the Vive, that's kind of all we support right now. Don't try it with, Leap or OSVR. I don't think we tested it all yet. Down the road, maybe we'll work on that stuff, but for now, we're just focused on Rift with touch and Vive. But they both should be fully supported. And then I just want to quickly go over the kind of goals of the project, because I kind of get asked about this a lot. Like, it kind of starts with like why, right? Like why like why are you doing this? It's a little crazy, or maybe it's not useful, or something like that. So we kind of ways back we were on stream with Tim, and we kind of talked about these goals, but I don't want to say the goals have changed really. They're kind of the same goals. It's just we now understand more because we have more people, like the guys working on Robo Recall. Picture behind me there, I guess. Right?
It looks good.
They've been using the feature and providing valuable feedback, and certainly the community feedback that we've seen from people trying it and trying to do like cool art.
I love finding YouTube videos, like the one that Yannick shows today where the guy's painting the sky.
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, exactly. Yep. So we have more feedback now, and we kind of understand a little bit more about what we're doing. But the goal really is just to kind of get in at the ground level and kind of learn about what it's like to have creativity tools in VR. Not off to the side in kind of a separate application, but porting kind of world-class tools into VR, and whether that's possible and how that might work. And I think it just so happened that we were set up initially with the way that we had architected some of the editor that maybe didn't seem like too crazy of an idea, because the way that we built the Slate UI system and the kind of low-level UI rendering and input routing. So we're like, see if we can do it. And then we did a few prototypes, and then now it's a supported feature, though experimental.
I really remember seeing it very early off in those discussions, and it feels kind of interesting to have that. Well, here's the vision, seeing like that overarching vision, and then watching as the community comes in and as we actually try and experiment with things. It's like no, pivot hard.
That's right.
Like that's gonna make them like feel ill. That one just feels strange. Keep going, and then it's that pivot left, pivot right until it kind of creates that semblance of a straight line, in the right direction. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, gosh, that stuff took a while. Just the idea of making sure people were comfortable using it, because when we started it, there was no real example of how to navigate around a scene without. I mean, there's we've seen teleporting examples, but navigating around at least as smoothly as you'd imagine if you're an expert with WASD and kind of mouse look and the features on desktop, we were like, how do we do something like this without making people sick? So that was like a big thing too. But I feel like the feedback we get about that is pretty good. So that stuff seems like it's in kind of a good place.
Getting around the level is actually really easy. It takes, I think it'll take you 5 to 10 minutes to really get kind of at home with it. And then once you get it, it's like, I either have a toy that I can play with and position like a game board, or I can jump into the world and crawl around like some sort of gorilla. And then occasionally I still use the teleport thing, but I find I don't use that as much.
Yeah.
Like it's cool when I know I need it. When I was like, I need to be right on that surface right now, it's very nice. But for the most part, I actually want to move over there.
Right. Or once you learn that you can scale yourself, kind of scale the world really small, like the size of a train set, you can just quickly move yourself over and then make the world huge again.
G.I. Joe playset size.
G.I. Joe playset
I build
size.
everything in G.I. Joe playset size, and then I jump in and test it.
Yeah.
As G.I. Joe.
As G.I. Joe, of course.
G.I. Joe.
Zach said earlier that like when he's sitting, he often wants to work at it.
Right.
Like,
that's been an interesting thing. Like the scale of editing it's really different if I'm standing or if I'm sitting. So if I'm in a room space environment in VR, like if I've got my Vive set up, then if I'm standing, I want it to be at 1:1 generally. I mean, with variations. Sometimes, like if I get to the top of a tall building, I'll scale things down. But
you want to be immersed. Like you want to feel like I'm the player.
Yeah. Here's what the level looks like, and here's what it's going to feel like. So I leave it at 1:1. When I'm sitting down, it feels so much more natural to shrink everything down and look at it in playset size and treat it like a toy box.
You'll probably show that too. That leads into the other kind of goal that we kind of realized with this is just that we've seen people come in and have really good success learning how to do kind of basic world building and level creation without a whole lot of sort of traditional game editing or CAD software experience. And it wasn't part of the original intent of the project. The original intent was certainly to create useful tools for VR developers to make VR games in a world-class application. And that remains to be a goal. But it's interesting just seeing, like, we've had journalists come in, people that don't really ever use tools like these, and they leave just thinking like, okay, I'm installing this when I get home because I know I can use it. And so I think that's kind of emerged to be like another kind of cool new goal for it now, is just to make the tools a little more accessible and a little more fun. Okay, so anyways, we'll go. I think now's probably a good time for you to
Yes, I have to click over to the
cover your face.
editor.
Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, goodbye, Zach.
All right, I'm probably gonna jar my mic all over the place. So if that happens, all right, I have to look at the.
There we go.
All right, cool. We're here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is build a little bit of an environment here inside the VR editor. And as I mentioned earlier, when I'm sitting down, which I had to sit down because this recording studio discriminates against tall people. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and shrink everything down. So I'm like, the world is 24 times smaller, or whatever that math works out to be. Also, there's a floor here that I think is annoying, so I'm just going to make that blow up. And let's start building some stuff. And there's some new features along the way that I want to show off. I don't have a list of them handy, so I'm going to rely on my partners in crime around me to remind me what I should be showing off from one moment to another. But we'll start by putting in our own floor. Now, I'll tell you, if you wanted to do what I'm doing right now, I just went into Showdown and I migrated a whole bunch of stuff that I could play with. And if you'd like to do the same thing, it's pretty easy. But so we've got our transform widget, which makes it pretty easy to move stuff around. I find that like when I first start roughing things in, like I don't care so much about precision. But for those times when you know you really need to move like along a single given axis, then it's very handy to be able to do that.
And this transform gizmo is one of the things, like update to it is new for 4.13.
Yeah, that's right. We did kind of a reboot of the transform gizmo based off feedback. Like rotation was kind of a disaster before.
Well, I did find early on with the VR editor that I didn't like the rotation so much that I kept trying to do like the two-handed rotation, like this. For those of you who haven't, let me just throw that into the sky real quick. You come back. You know what? Just there you go. Come here. So I kept trying to do this a lot. Where you do like the two-handed rotation, which, by the way, this works a whole lot better than I remember it working. Like, I feel like I can actually get a reasonable amount of precision now.
Sure.
Like,
it's a little strange with snapping turned on, but yeah, you can get used to it.
I find that it's better with snapping.
Yeah.
I just made a wall.
Yeah.
Like, and I wouldn't have been able to do that
snap
before.
to 90 degrees, yeah.
I'm gonna delete that because it's terrible, but but it's a start. So let's turn this into something kind of like an environment. So I'll bring in Mr. Mushnick's flower shop here, and let's rotate this guy around.
And these are like facade pieces then.
No, I love the whole snap to ground thing. I use that a lot. Also, I find that I often forget my own scales, so I end up doing this a lot to remind myself how big I really am. Because you spend too long in toy mode, and you're like, oh, I'll just size everything up so it feels natural here without remembering.
But you're
Right.
big into the building,
This.
it's just all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. So I make it back down to normal size. I'm like, oh my god, I built a gigantic world.
And for anyone who hasn't had a chance to try it, like when Zach grips with both hands, he can kind of turn the world like you're turning a bus or a steering wheel on a bus.
Yeah.
Or you can pinch and zoom and kind of scale the world up and down.
Oh, so yeah, if I pseudo inadvertently punch either Mike or Lauren here, then I'm really sorry in advance, and I totally didn't mean to do it.
This is for.
But no, yeah, you can check it out. So like if you use the grippy buttons on the sides of the touch controllers or on your Vive remotes, if you have those, you can pinch and zoom this way, which is just kind of scaling the whole world up, or you can rotate things around, which if you're stuck in a chair like I am right now, then that's a nicer, well, it's really the only way to turn around. When I'm in my room size thing, I just turn around and look behind me. All right, so let's make a little bit more of a wall. My hands are a little shaky this morning because I've had way too many energy drinks, but that's okay. Shrink the world down a little bit. So you know what? Let's just do it by hand. There you go. So we'll pull this guy over here and slide him out this way. I'm going back down to G.I. Joe playset size.
Yeah, and when Zach was doing this earlier for testing, I was telling him about the new feature that Yannick added in where you can like snap yourself back to
Oh, that's right.
1-to-1 after you've made everything
so
tiny.
Also like really kind of playing with the grid with this. So I'm going to set the grid to 100 real quick. And then we can just pop this out, and it should snap to a reasonable location. It may not be perfect, but we're just kind of roughing something out anyway. So cool, we've got like a wall. And then we can go back over here to the content browser, which is just kind of perched off my left shoulder. and start putting in decorations like a dumpster or something. So we're starting to build an environment. I want one more building in here, and then we'll move on to something else. But like I can drop this in here. The transform gizmo makes it very easy to rotate this around, kind of give it a quick do-si-do, and then put it over here. Am I about to punch anything?
No,
You're good, man.
Just swing hard.
Exactly. I want to. All right,
some
so
rope-a-dope action.
so cool. We've got. In fact, let's go back to 1-to-1, and then so I can kind of get to where I want. I can just use the grip button and then trigger right next to the dumpster,
Teleport.
and then yeah, we can kind of zip down to that location. So yeah, this here.
Can
keep
see your shadow.
The scale. Yeah, I have shadows for my controllers, which is very exciting. Okay, so I mean, I could keep adding things, but you get the idea of world building at this point, right? You just grab things, you can slap a world together actually very quickly and immediately get that sense of presence, which is awesome. But let's take a look at some of the other tools which are also available. So aim the controller lasers at either controller, and you have this nice little menu, oh stuff. So let's change out our modes, just like the mode selecting window in the full editor, and I can go into foliage mode, which, so this is just a personal thing. You know, your mileage might vary, but it's sometimes nice to have your UI attached to your hand so you can waggle it around like a paddle and fan things.
Wait, no, that's not why.
Be like, it's a little hot in here. I'm just gonna fan myself, and that's pretty cool. But I tend to just kind of park it off one shoulder and forget about it. But anyway, so now I can paint some foliage. It's worth noting that I already had this foliage
Painting trash?
set up. Yeah, painting trash.
It's garbage foliage.
It's not a
trash
beautiful
forest.
demo.
But it's for when you don't want to like have to hand place all of your garbage bags, but you
I
want
mean,
to kind of like
We're
procedurally generate them.
we're in a city back alley. Painting a bunch of grass and trees doesn't make sense. So let's fill it with garbage.
Clutter.
Yeah, sure.
And it is a nice way to do this. Now you can paint, as you can see, like I can paint stuff down, and then if I hit the modifier button, which is the A button, if I stare at this, you can even see it. Then I can erase as well. So if I've added too much garbage, I can throttle it back just a little bit. But it's really easy to work with. You still have total control over like your brush size and all that. We could make like a giant brush and just fill the whole area with
Some,
garbage.
like, on the roof there.
Yeah, it landed on like every visible surface, so we'll just erase that back out like so, and we'll make that a little bit smaller. There we go, and we'll keep it somewhat reasonable, just like around the dumpster.
So
And then
one thing, like you guys can see, like the UI that's in the world there is, it's going to be familiar. It's the same UI.
Yeah.
Just about the same UI. We've done some size scaling with it to make it a little more comfortable in VR, and so you can read the text more easily, but
Like all the same options, all the same.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a very important design pillar for this project. We don't want to rebuild a whole different UI, maintain two different UIs. We want to learn about how to build systems that can be adaptive toward either use case.
Also, you want to be able to take your menus and build like a little fort out of them around.
you laugh,
could
but I've
do
done it. No, you laugh, but I've done it. I'm a big fan of doing like the Matrix thing, where you make like a dome of UI around you,
Yeah.
Oh,
and carry
wow.
that with you wherever you go. And because it is staying, right? Like I'm actually moving, and I know I can always look off my left shoulder, and it's always going to be there. Some part of me kind of hopes that maybe like in the future, like if I totally look away from something, it'll minimize. But that's like future.
Taking notes for
yeah.
future requests.
Right. That's like, shut up, Zach. We're not here for that.
No.
Did you know you can resize it?
I can do like the
There you
whole.
go, cool.
So if you waggle the sticks, I can make it like impossibly not quite useful giant size. So be like giant billboard size. So
It can be useful to read things sometimes.
absolutely, yeah, like especially in the details panel,
Yeah, the
right?
details
Like,
panel.
but like in this one, it's like compensating size, and I'll leave it down here where I can actually use it. So that's putting in foliage. Now we can also do mesh painting, which it's so cool that we can do this, because I often find I need to do mesh painting like for a special material that uses vertex color or something similar, but I hate doing that with a mouse, and I don't always want to like
Go find your tablet
go
or
find my
something.
tablet and do
Yeah.
all that kind of mad craziness. So let me put myself back in placement mode for just a minute, and let's go over to the content browser and park that over here. Now I've got a coffee cup, which is going to float here in the middle of space, which is fine. And why don't we just pop that down to the ground? Haha. Okay, so this is like it's a normal size coffee cup actually. It's life size, which is a little on the lame side as far as I'm concerned. So I could try to make it a little bigger. Let's do this. Let's start using our UI, right? So we've got our details panel, and I can't scroll.
Oh, the spinners aren't in there.
All right,
right now.
no spinners. That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. Let's make the world very big, come here. I want that guy.
Zach's the size of an ant now.
Yeah, exactly. But see, I want to be.
That's what
I
a
wanna
coffee
be.
cup would look like
Right,
to an
this,
ant.
and this is what a coffee cup would look like to an ant, and I think it's beautiful.
Is this a coffee cup for ants?
The ant's just hungry.
Yeah, right. But I could just be like, all right, well, let's just make this a much bigger coffee cup. Right? It's like, now here's what a coffee cup should be. This is my kind of coffee cup, right?
This is just
Now-
a Starbucks tall.
Now, it's worth mentioning that I've taken the material of this coffee cup and I've taken its base color and I've multiplied it by a vertex color so that I can do the following, which is to jump in here and go into modes and park this for a second, and let's go into paint mode. And you'll notice we have vertex and we have texture mode, so let's go to vertices and let's choose a color. And we get the color picker. Let's just position that someplace. Now, here's the thing. Just for those of you who want to play with this, keep in mind that your UI is another object. So just be aware of that kind of thing.
It's a little interesting though because it's tracked in your local space,
Right.
As if it's in the room next to you in real life.
Yeah. So I mean, as you move through the world,
It'll follow you around,
Yeah, it'll
right.
follow you around, which is very, very handy.
So it's kind of like setting up a workstation around you.
What I find I tend to do is I will keep my UI to the left and to the right, sometimes above me, and I'll keep this area open so I can work around it.
But then you can just look over it. That's pretty
Right.
cool.
So let's get up above my magic coffee cup, and then this is fine. So let's choose a color. Notice I'm using the new color picker, so I can just use my laser and my trigger and be like, let's do red, and let's say we've got it's Halloween, right? So we've got the coffee cup that is very Halloweeny. So
Pumpkin
Ugh.
spice latte.
all right, so we need our brush to be a little bit on the bigger side because we have a giant coffee cup right now. That's pretty good. Blah. So we're painting vertices now, and now it's like Halloween. I don't know what somebody made in this coffee cup.
Vampire coffee aftermath.
Vampire coffee.
There you go. I'll have a Transylvanian latte. So yeah, no problem. So now we can also switch over to texture mode, and we can paint directly on textures like this too, which is pretty amazing. So if, let's choose another color. In fact, let's just do classic black magic marker. And what's my strength? My strength is set to pretty much 1, which is good. Wow, that's a really fat marker. Let's make that a lot smaller. How's that? That's still a little bit too much. Let's try there. This will probably do. So let's see. Oh, look, I can write my name. So I could be like when you go to Starbucks and they write your name, they're like, "What's your name?" "My name's Zach." And they're like, "Okay, sir, here you go." We dotted the X, right? So, but you can do these kind of things, right? And now, granted, my hands are all shaky because I'm obviously way over caffeinated, but you actually
you
have
finished one of those coffees.
quite a bit of precision here. Like if you wanted to make this, nice and large, maybe pull the strength down. Choose, I don't know, some other useful color. Green is not useful, but it's what I'm going to use anyway.
This is kind of a nice thing in VR too because scale is your ally in VR. If you don't have enough precision at the size you are, you can make the world really huge, and then suddenly it's amplifying the precision that you get out of your natural movements.
Exactly. So cool. We'll do green, and now I can just kind of gently paint green on here as I want to. But it's nice to have access to that sort of thing like very easily in VR.
Now it definitely looks like garbage.
Well, it's true. It does. It does. Let's just.
Not like it looks bad. It just looks like a literal piece of trash.
Well, we'll just delete
as
that.
intended.
Now it did leave a shadow, which is this actually works kind of to my advantage because what I want to do is take.
You can set up the lighting in the map to be dynamic.
That's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter in this case because what I wanted to really do is take this building and make a clone of it, and then let's make sure. Let's double check our modes because I think right now I'm in paint mode and I want to be back in placement mode. So let's.
Oh no, shut down.
And that concludes our demo.
And we're live.
And we're live.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, so all I was really going to do is show off. When we'll get back in here, I'll show you a couple of different features.
Yeah,
I'm
so
trying to think that, was there anything we missed though? I think
Well,
we got
you want
most of
to
it.
take a look at screenshots. You want to take a
Yeah.
look at the
okay.
flashlight, which is really cool.
What is the project that you used?
It's called VR Editor Demo. I went through a really creative name. There it is.
There we go.
Sweet.
But yeah, the mesh painting and the color picker are both new for 4.13.
And if you'll just
Yeah.
file new map, then I'll make it work from there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, don't
Alright, there we
skip
go.
that. It's fine.
Now we do have a few questions coming in here, and
Sure.
before everything just kind of happened there, I was gonna ask.
Yes.
Mons Olympus is asking.
Wait.
Can you only paint the selected object? Oh,
Correct. You can only paint selected object. So you're not just going to randomly start painting the entire world.
there you go.
And ideally, you've got an object that has a UV map that is conducive to that sort of thing. It's
Yes.
not just going to do like a world projection by itself. So just that's food for thought. I did take the liberty of throwing the starter content in here, so I can throw something together fairly quickly. Let's go under architecture, and drop a wall down, and then another wall down.
Mons asks, why not?
It's the exact same way the tool has always worked in Unreal. It's a 2D paint projection system, which is not world based. It's just it's based on your texture space.
All right.
Yeah, it's not to say we couldn't add more projection features.
Yeah, you totally could. It's just not the way it's working right at the moment.
It just kind of contains it to one thing at a time.
Yep. All right, cool. So this is all I really wanted, was to create an area with just a little bit of shadowing going on. So let's go back to scale of 1. I understand at some point there's going to be a button to take me right back to that.
Yes.
Yep, that's in the next release. It's in the preview that's out now.
So actually, also, let me turn off the grid. So this is what my world looks like right now. I've got this one somewhat darker area, and I notice over here, if I aim my laser at my hand, I've got a light button. I can turn that on and actually have a light that I can point around. So I find when I'm building levels in Unreal, I often have an entire layer that I turn on and off with all of my heinous, terrible-looking work lights. And this kind of alleviates that. I just have a flashlight that I can point around the world, and it's nice because you actually could monster light something. Like you can put the light up underneath it or light it from different angles, and crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, it has just a spotlight attached to your hand, so you could. I mean, it behaves like a light would if you placed it in the level there.
Right,
so.
exactly.
Yeah, and you made that, Lauren?
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things I put in the VR editor. Is the flashlight.
Congratulations,
Dark in
Lauren.
here. Light.
Actually, let's do this.
Seems like the obvious choice.
We found people love manipulating lights in VR.
It's very satisfying, and
Yeah.
performance-wise, it's a little terrifying. All right, there you go. So now we can deselect and get the light and be like, whoa, you can light it from different angles. It's very fancy. All right, it makes me happy. And then we can also, if I turn that off because it's distracting and in my way right now, we also have a screenshot mode. Now, this it might require a little bit of finesse depending on what you want from it, right? So like if I just use this, pull the trigger, click, there was a tiny pause. I don't know if it picks up on the video, but that actually did save a screenshot out. But it caught all of this, like my hand, the view, like everything it sees is what you just captured. Basically, whatever's in the preview window when people walk up to your monitor. So if you really want to get a shot of this, you probably want to like aim your hand at this and then look at the thing and pull the trigger. But it's fine. Like once you get the hang of that, it's actually pretty easy.
We'll probably have a shortcut button at
Yeah.
some point. Didn't you
I
already
eventually
have
want to do
one?
like a camera type of thing that you just like kind of switch into.
That's
so that-
Right.
what I want is like the smartphone looking thing where I have like the little because you could do
You hold up a
capture.
viewfinder?
Yeah, you'd be like the capture actor,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You'd be like it would feel like when I take a picture with my Android phone, just be like,
Oh, and then we have the poles on there, so it's like a selfie stick, and you can turn the camera around even.
We're going to talk
well,
about...
then I'd never get anything done in Unreal ever. All right, so I think that's everything you guys really wanted to show. Now I'm just goofing off and making giant floating coffee cups.
Got a couple questions for you here. So the flashlight, can you scale it or adjust the flashlight settings at all?
So not right now, but I do want to make it something later where like you could have more of like change the light intensity, change the color, maybe so you could actually like manipulate it. But
I think we're going to end up having a VR editor preferences that
Yeah.
obviously you can get to
Yeah.
very conveniently because we're running into like a lot of things that could easily be made configurable.
I could see how that would be extremely useful if you could actually configure the flashlight there with like your in-game flashlight. So if you want to know how a scene looks actually in-game, you just kind of go in like, okay, shine the flashlight around. Okay, this is kind of getting what I'm getting at. That way you don't have to jump back to game mode.
Right.
You can still be in the edit mode also. And then yeah, if you have different scales of stuff, you're going to want to change the scaling of the light. All right.
Alex, can we bring up the slides simultaneously with this? Or is it
I
probably
don't-
not, right?
Do you want to switch back to the slides?
You put them on,
On the other
If
monitor?
you put them on half the monitor.
then half the
Oh, okay, like half and half.
then I can
Yeah.
go through it.
Let me see if
I
I
don't
can
know
do
what
that.
that'll do.
I don't know what it'll do either. It's exciting.
Oh,
I take no
All right,
responsibility
click
for
down there in the,
whatever happens next.
Oh,
Okay.
You know what's funny? Whenever we lose focus in Unreal,
Hit escape.
it freezes because that's what it's supposed to do when you're not
And then
focused on
you
it.
can-
I find I freeze too.
we just leave you in that position.
Yeah, it's like
like red light, green light.
I should now hold still as well.
Maybe full screen.
yeah, I'm not sure
Okay.
what I can do without full
Would you,
screen.
I can stop doing this and we can go back to your slides.
I'm going to try one thing just for fun.
Oh man. All right.
Might work.
Doing it live.
What could possibly
It's
go
not
wrong?
this work.
Wait,
Oh, sweet.
I can make it better. Hold on. We'll
Oh
do-
my gosh, Mike,
You can
please.
also extend it halfway onto the other monitor.
Yeah, then you just change the mirror mode. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea too.
This is
There you
easy
go.
when you're
There
not
you go.
wearing a mic.
Sweet.
Look at that.
Okay. Okay.
All right, back to present.
Oh.
Oh! Sorry, Zach.
It's fine. It's fine.
Just don't vomit.
I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Just
Uh,
don't vomit. Just don't vomit.
How can we present without going full screen?
I don't know if we might just have to go through the slides.
Yeah, we can just go through the slides. We'll just
Yeah.
hide this thing on the.
Let's
Yeah.
see here. Will VR Editor be compatible with more hardware than just Oculus and Vive?
I mean, absolutely. I'm sure we'll support. So the implementation is 99% just the generic Unreal HMD system. So
Doesn't OSVR, like the HMD, already kind of work for that, or?
we just haven't tested it with
Yeah,
this thing.
I don't
Oh,
think
there
there's
you
any
go.
reason why it wouldn't. Yeah.
Oh, it's because the sleep background throttling. So I'll have to
Oh.
turn that off.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just do slides by itself for
Okay.
a bit. Give
Okay.
Zach a little break, anyways.
That's fine.
Are you just gonna leave the headset on?
Just sit there, like the hat on. And then if we run into something that we want to show, we'll just
Sure. Yeah.
throw it
Go
in.
back.
Yeah.
Cool. So we covered that stuff. So 4.13, let's see if we kind of showed all this stuff here. So these features were released in the last release.
I didn't show play from VR Editor, but it does work. There's just a little button on your hand when you're shooting the laser at one hand, and it's the play button. So you can immediately start playing, and then if you hit the grips and the triggers all together at once, you stop playing. So it's very easy to jump back and forth.
Okay, so to exit play,
Yeah. So when you play, I can show. Do you want me to show?
will it work with the default level here? Let's try.
It should.
I think it comes with a player start.
Hold on, let
I
me
think.
get it on the other
As long as
monitor.
there's a player start, then we should be fine. I don't know if there is or not. We'll know shortly.
You
Aha!
go flying through
Whoa.
space.
Oh, one eyeball.
Whoa, one giant eyeball.
Yeah.
I mean, I see everything fine.
It's that's all that matters.
Shunk.
It's
Okay.
just the aspect ratio.
Oh, I see.
Whoa.
Well, let's see if I don't know if I actually put a player start in here, so let's just hit play and see what happens. Ah.
Ta-da.
Okay. Well, I have a player
now we're
start.
a window.
Yeah, it's not the VR pawn, but that's okay. And then when I'm done, I hit the grippy buttons both together, and then the triggers both together, and it stops, and it dumps me back out into the editor, or
Thanks to the slide deck.
or into other applications as well.
Are you just seeing the
This
slides
is like
now?
windowing
Awesome.
mayhem here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to slides. Thanks, Zach. Screenshots.
That just worked out perfectly for everybody.
Automatic VR entry and exit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So new stuff coming. We'll go over this just kind of real quick. We don't have the 4.14 build on here right now, but
No.
the preview's available. So
Yep.
Everybody can
whatever's
go
in-
try
yeah, you
this
just
out.
try it.
Grab it.
if you have a
the
an
preview
HMD.
had just gone live, and we could not actually download it in time. But
Did it just go live right before we got
It
up?
went live at I think around noon-ish. We could have we probably could have done it, but I was at lunch until 1. So
Never
my
make a change
bad.
like that right before a show.
Okay.
yeah, that too. Cool.
Okay. So in 4.14 we added a few new features.
Oh, by the way, that was one of the questions. Is ask Mike to leak new 4.14 information. So, so I didn't even have to ask. Surprise! I'm doing it.
We always talk about new
Yes.
stuff. We're gonna go real far with forward looking in this before we're done today.
Yeah.
Stuff that we're nowhere close to have implemented yet, but that's okay. So terrain painting works now, and again, like when Zach showed kind of mesh paint, it's gonna be similar.
Well, I want to throw out a feature request for this. I know it's not the time or place, but I'm going to do it anyway. So the idea of doing like a really broad, massive terrain, or even a smaller one that you scale down, you're going to spend a lot of time like this. I want like canvas style rotation to like put it up on the wall so I can work forward instead of down all the time.
Oh gosh, so like pitch the world up.
Yeah.
You know what the trick there is. Of course, it's just pitch
Ru-
him
so-
down.
Or alternatively, right?
Pitch him down.
I
You
can
just pitch it, switch
even
it
that,
over.
right? Or
Yeah.
I'll probably end up if I use this workflow, I'll probably end up taking the terrain and just rotating the terrain horizontal while I work on it.
Right. Yeah. As an object in the scene,
Yeah,
not
'cause
not.
terrain painting takes time,
Yeah.
and spending a lot of time like this is gonna get wonky after a while.
So when we first added the world movement controls, allowing you to like scroll and scale and rotate the world,
I bet you did.
we yeah.
Oh,
I
it's
mean
so
the
bad.
default thing before we added the safety harnesses,
Yeah.
was you grab the world from any two positions in space and you can freely rotate the world around you, freely
Oh.
scale.
Yeah.
No constraint to the yaw axis.
That's exciting.
if you ever want the experience, you can like knock the mouse when you're in
No, no,
VR.
It's not something.
It's
It's not a
not-
phenomena that you
I
can ever
think-
experience in the real world, and it's not surprisingly people had trouble with that.
Right. Well, it's like all the little things. I think if you know it can happen and you're doing it on purpose because you know it can happen, that's one thing. But just the other day, I was playing in VR and I ended up in a situation where the world was sloped. I think it was just the Vive picked up the headset a little bit late. So when I first jumped into the world, I pulled the headset down from my forehead and the world kind of tilted along with it. And it was just like a 20-degree tilt, and it was enough for me to go, whoa, I'm about to fall over. It's amazing. So yeah, a little bit of jarring. Yeah, I can see that being really disorienting. It's just one of those workflow things where I feel like if I could paint on this like a canvas, it could be really useful.
Yep, that makes sense. Kind of like God's eye view mode.
Yep.
We could just teleport you into it, maybe.
Love it.
Okay, so this is in now. I think not every terrain editing feature is exposed. There's kind of like some UI things that we're still working through, but the core, painting heights and painting textures,
Yeah.
hopefully the high bang for buck features that you'll want to use should all be working. Cool. Next thing, this is kind of a maybe. You guys want to talk about this one?
This
It's
is
kind of
awesome.
interesting
I
one.
love
I'll
this
just play
one.
the video's kind of long. We'll have to
And
skip through it.
and Trung's in the chat right now, by the way.
He
Hi,
is.
Trung.
Trung.
What's
Yeah,
up?
man.
So this is the video that he made actually before he left, because Trung was an intern here over the summer working on the VR editor with us, of a bunch of different keyboard prototypes, because you want to be able to say type in a property name or just be able to type in VR without having to try to like peek under and see your keyboard. And so we tried like lasers, the xylophone, which you'll see.
He gives you those diddly boppers. There they are. I love those things.
Playing the drums.
Alex, I think you were a kind of a master with the one that was 2 xylophone prongs per hand, so you
Yeah,
kind of
'cause
had to
you can,
wiggle
like,
back and forth.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I see.
rock-
Yeah, you
I
could-
would just start rocking them back and forth to hit the inner and outer keys, and
There's
it was
the
actually
double one
really
there.
fast. Yeah, there it is. There's the double.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just remember he handed it to me, and I'm like, it's like alien diddly boppers. It's like little aliens in my hands. It's got like the little antennas sticking off of them.
Alien diddly
amused.
boppers.
I was just so amused by how silly they looked in my hands. So he's like, no, Alex, focus, focus.
So Trung actually built a little typing test
Yeah.
application here, right? And then
I think we all tried it
everyone
out.
tried it. We even put the whole UX team. We had them all try it too,
Yeah.
I think, right? Go through it and compare scores for typing and figure out kind of which of the 4 or 5 methods, were people most comfortable with, and B like could type the fastest with the fewest
And
errors.
those didn't always match. Like
No,
sometimes
they
the ones you
didn't.
were fastest with, people were like, I didn't actually like the way that felt. Like I wouldn't want to do it long term, which was just interesting to take a look at.
I feel like you need the most right now is just a numpad.
I actually have an idea
Yeah.
for that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna try it out soon.
Yeah.
It's gonna be pretty cool.
Because I noticed there are times like when I want to bring in an object and set it to a scale that I know works really well for this object, and there's no easy way to do that. I've got
Yeah.
to use snaps and get it close to that.
And
Yeah.
we don't even really want you to have to bring up the details panel. Just kind
Exactly.
of inline right there.
Exactly.
Just be able to transform type in.
Yep.
Yeah. But
So-
yeah, I have an idea of a numpad. Hopefully, I'll be able to try it out soon.
Cool.
Cool. So that's kind of it. There's 5 little prototypes here that Trung did. Really cool work. And we haven't implemented this isn't out of the VR editor yet, but that's something that's high priority on our list, obviously, because you can only go so far without having to type at some point. Well,
You could just force people to learn Morse code.
Right. Back to percent.
It's a very cool feature, though. I think a lot of people are already coming up with unique uses for it. And let's see, PC Zaz says that he wants to wear it on his chest like a keytar. That'd probably actually be a good UI solution, so it's not like all in your face the whole time.
By the way, I think the feedback was that the drumming one actually felt pretty intuitive, right?
Right.
Most people, even though it was a little bit strange.
It feels sort of childish, like you're a toddler playing a game.
Yeah.
I feel like that.
The one thing that we did have to look at, like both for the keyboards but also for like menu motions in general, is like keeping your muscle movement small, because we do want people to be able to do this for a long time.
That's right.
So like you don't want big swinging motions, but like typing.
Typing. Boom. Boom.
But if you have small motions, it takes less like strength to basically type a longer thing or basically keep doing the motions.
Amazing.
Right.
You finally make it up to like 60 words a minute, and then suddenly you're really good at the glockenspiel.
We'll just put audio right on the buttons anyways.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
We can teach people how to play all kinds of drums and stuff. It'd be great. Yeah.
Typing gibberish in VR. That's all I do all day.
Cool. So next we have new menu stuff. This has kind of been like a kind of refactor effort that Yannick and Lauren have been working on for a little while. I guess, what are the main goals, would you say?
So
Play the
part of
video.
it is as we're adding new features like, say, mesh paint or things like that, or the flashlight. We want to to add buttons to the menu, and we were running out of space. So we're like, if we add more features, where are the buttons going to go? Because we're laying them out statically in UMG. And also that meant we had a bunch of blueprint nodes that we had to wire up and refresh manually.
So basically, we rushed everything together to be able to get things working so we could use it, and then show it off at GDC. And now we're like, oh yeah, how are you actually going to make?
That's not how that works. We never do that.
But things like we had our own version of cut and copy and paste because we needed them for like UMG. So this is actually figuring out a way to hook into the existing editor behaviors where we can. And then this all dynamically laid out. So like that grid under interface, when I added the toggle all UI button, I just added a couple lines of code, and the grid automatically knew to put it in the next slot in the uniform grid. So it was less, oh, I have to go now find a place for this button. It will just dynamically resize as I add elements to it.
Right. So more programmatically driven UI was kind of the big cool thing here. And also it gives, I feel like, a nice, more cohesive look with the rest of the editor, right? It matches kind of the visual theme of the editor.
It's using a lot more of the Slate elements, like the icons, the hover color is the exact same as the editor hover color. All of that styling is pretty much the same.
And another nice thing, like eventually we'll have plugins that we'll want to extend the VR editor with. Maybe we'll talk about that more later, but like we want them to be able to augment these UIs, and if we're doing things a whole different way, that wasn't probably going to fly too well. So we're getting closer. It's going to be more work, but we're getting closer to more consistency with the desktop editor.
I can definitely picture a world where I would have the ability to select what things I want to be able to play with in there to really narrow it down. So I feel like when I'm in VR, not only do I not need a large part of the UI, I actually don't want it. I go in there because I know I want to play some things and rough out an area at first, and later on maybe I'm doing some final tweaking. But there are a lot of things I just simply don't want access to, and if I know that if I can collapse those out and make them go away, narrow it down to exactly what I want to see, put the VR editor in like a certain mode, then I think I could work a little faster.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that'd
great
be cool,
feedback.
like a UI palette plugin that
Yep.
you're building a palette of tools as opposed to just assets.
Yeah, we
So
talked about like a favorites panel kind of
Yeah.
thing, basically.
It goes back to like workspaces. Like when you make a particular layout of a UI in some application, you save that out as a workspace. So I have like my modeling workspace, my animation workspace, and so forth.
Yep. Cool.
And then like the radial menu got a little bit of a refresh too with this. So like rather than try to like nudge the touchpad or the thumbstick to summon it, you have to like actually click it now, which should help with accidental menu creation.
Yeah, we had a bunch of like just a little bit of sloppiness could easily lead to like weird things happening with the UI in 3D.
It is HTC's fault. That puck for like the top of the Vive is so large that it's very easy for like the edge of your finger to brush up against it, and that reads as a capacitive touch.
Right, and in the existing 4.13 version, well, even 4.14, we summon menus when you just even graze that thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be better in their future version. Okay, next feature, which I think Yannick's working on this right now,
Yes.
is sort of live simulate mode while in VR.
VR bowling.
Yeah, VR bowling.
This will do nothing but backfire in my case.
Productivity comes to a halt.
Because you'll take your nicely designed level and just Jenga it.
I won't be able to resist the urge to just knock everything over.
Well, so this is the normal editor simulate mode, so you can stop it and we'll go back to how things work unless you choose to keep specific changes. But this gives you the ability to toggle in instantly while in VR, which up until this upcoming version hasn't really been supported at all with this, because it's a little tricky with the way that we're doing things, where we're putting kind of these motion controller objects and components inside your editor world as these kind of transient temporary things. It was quite a bit of work to get that working in the first place, and now to be able to live toggle to simulate brought all these additional challenges. So anyways, we're working through it right now, and you can see it's kind of working.
Yeah, my productivity
really
is about
cool.
to tank. That looks like way too much fun.
Yeah.
I'll even do that like just in the level editor, like when I go into the template to test something, I'm like, gotta check everything out of the way.
It just makes sure these physics work. Yeah.
Because everything's got a little bit of momentum to it. So just
So someone had asked earlier if we had any kind of a solution in the VR editor for basically giving objects physics and then throwing them all around and letting them scatter and then kind of saving that. But you can save your simulation and like leave everything where it was.
Just like with the desktop editor, I don't think we have the button in yet, but we'll add the button.
Yeah.
The K button.
Yeah, the K button.
I
Keep
use
simulation.
it all the time.
Yeah.
It's so great.
So if you make a mess, you happen to make a mess while you're in simulate mode, or
And you
or
like
in
the way-
play mode,
and you like the way that mess looks.
yeah, you can just select the actors and simulate, and then hit the K key, or right click and do keep simulation changes, and it will find the counterpart of those actors inside your editor world and kind of copy their state on top of it so that you can save it when you exit the game.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And the part there it says AI while editing, because we're simulating. So while you're in this mode, I could just let the AI run around, do whatever they
Oh, yeah.
like. And could you throw in more? Or I guess this is simulate. It's not the same.
It's the full-on game running. It's just
Yes,
we
you could
didn't
drag
spawn
other
a
things
pawn.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can open
okay,
content browser
cool.
in here and drag things in.
So you can just have fun just throwing all the orcs and elves around you and letting them battle right in front of you. Awesome.
Cool. I think, is that it for
I think the 414.
414
Yeah.
stuff? Okay. Okay, so this is where I'll try to just go through this pretty quick. I don't know, are we okay for time, Alex?
You're awesome on time.
Oh, awesome.
Like, I'm more worried, like, if Zach needs to get out of here, you guys need to get out of here. Like, I know
We're
y'all
okay
are
right now.
super busy.
Cool.
You're all good? Awesome, then we're good.
Okay, so I thought this would be just kind of interesting to hopefully you guys just kind of, as we've been doing this, we've learned like some things are really hard to do with VR editing. I kind of want to just enumerate some of the things that we look at as like, oh God, like how will we ever get this? You know, some of them aren't that bad, but
Definitely things we have to figure out.
yeah, they're on the horizon for us, and I think I don't see any reason not to share. I think it's kind of interesting because we talk about this stuff all the time, and any kind of advice you guys have or can think of, always appreciated too. So just gonna go through some things. The first one's kind of the obvious thing is maybe making the controls intuitive. We took a shot at it. We've taken a bunch of shots actually.
Yeah.
The current version is not the first version.
But when you lose all your keyboard shortcuts, you're like, okay, how do you do an action for copy? Okay, well, we're going to put a button for right now. But like, you can imagine wanting to come up with something that feels right for a copy action.
Yeah, it's super hard. So, and this is an area maybe where we don't necessarily need to be the trailblazers. We're a little careful with this because the whole industry and everyone working on, there's amazing creative tools in VR being created all the time. And we see those things and learn about from what they're doing. Hopefully they're checking out what we're doing and learning from us. So it's like, we have to very carefully choose how much time we put into getting the first pass, like super gangbusters awesome. But it's definitely something that comes up with every single thing we do. Next one is just, we have this whole existing editor that's ginormous. And we, like I said earlier, we don't want to redo the whole thing. We don't think that that's in the interest of experienced developers to kind of have like a kids mode or whatever, a simplified version.
Oh man, but I want that.
Well,
No, I want 3D blueprint representation that works in VR. Like
So you're
with
just-
actual blocks that have wires that I can plug together.
it's just gonna be a frenzy of spaghetti rope everywhere.
Oh my god, and I want that rope to be dynamic.
Yeah.
The light up is.
We've talked about something like that.
That's what I want.
Yeah, the idea was in the blueprint editor you could expose kind of ports maybe
Yep.
on
Yep.
things that are just event triggers.
Sure.
It could get more complicated, but then that's something that you'd have kind of your matrix view mode where you kind of see the lifeblood flowing through the connected objects in your level, and then in VR you could just go and grab them and move the ropes around and connect them.
Well, I can see like practically speaking that having true full 3D blueprints like with nodes that are blocks that you can position wherever, like that can get
It's
tedious.
too much, yeah.
I'd lose track of that. But taking the blueprint grid and making that like 2.5D, like I can slide along it,
Yeah.
and actually having like real blocks that I can look at and drag wires to, like I can see that really like feeling good. I've tried to use the blueprint editor. I know it's not really supported. I've tried to use it, and it's most of the way there now. Like you're really close.
Yeah, so there's actually on the forums we've had some really cool ideas for blueprint editing in VR as well. So I mean, we just haven't had time to get to there.
Sure.
We're gonna get the desktop version working in VR normally first, and then like we'll go from there.
It would straight up feel like a real electronics kit.
I know,
You know,
totally
like
would.
all these black boxes that
I
I
know.
just plug together and cool stuff happens.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, this is complicated for us. We're trying to find a way that, you have a file menu, you have like your existing toolbars and context menus, and how do we bring that stuff into VR so that you can get to everything? Like we literally want you to be able to get to everything eventually.
But in a way that still feels good.
Yeah,
right?
it still feels kind of good. Or if we have to learn how to change how we built those in the first place, and kind of update them to be more VR compatible. Just figuring out what the best design practices are for that is like a big thing. That's just like we're still like, holy crap.
I have already tried to hit the Y button on the Rift controllers to bring up the context menu.
Oh really? Just
Yeah.
like a right click.
Yeah, it's like maybe if I'm lucky that. Oh.
Okay. Next one, this is kind of like a low level. But on desktop, you have all these windows that can pop up just in kind of under normal circumstances, like, hey, you have to save your map, so it prompts you, give it a file name.
Or make a new level.
Yeah, so there's windows that pop up and they demand attention, right? In UE4, one of our sort of, I guess, UX design philosophies compared to the UE3 editor was to not have as many of those and to do things more modeless, which means notifications that pop up that you can either just ignore or click on them lazily later. We use that a lot in UE4, pretty much as we can, but we still have on the order of 100 or two modal interactions, which are basically like, stop everything, you need to deal with me right now. That's what those windows want. That's tricky in VR, and it's arguably not a good thing in VR. But it's one of the more tricky things to retrofit. And we have some great ideas and people thinking about it here, but it's one of those super scary ones that we're going to be looking at, like how to deal with.
And notifications is another one that I know that we're looking at too.
Oh,
you want to be able to be like,
yep.
Lighting is done building, or
Yep.
your shaders are compiling, that kind of thing.
But that's not a scary one. Like,
No,
we'll
it's
get that
just-
working, right?
yeah.
But it's the modal ones, the ones that are just like, can't, like, I'm in the middle, in C++, I'm in the middle of some deep call stack right in the middle of like the package saving code, and it's like, something's going on with the shaders and I need you to tell me what to do. In VR, we can't just keep pushing frames and keep, so there's different ideas about how we could do it, but it's going to end up being a little tricky. Good looking. Right, so this is kind of a funny one. It might look like we have this solved because you can click on stuff in VR with the lasers on the motion controllers, but if you went into, say, like wireframe mode, you wouldn't be able to click on the wires. If there were sprites in the scene, the sprites wouldn't be interactable, and it's because we're relying on kind of PhysX collision to figure out like what's roughly under those lasers. And a lot of stuff, it turns out, in the editor is more ephemeral. It doesn't really have any kind of physical representation.
Yeah.
Plain lights.
Yeah, exactly. They're just pixels drawn to a buffer, an ID buffer that we go and extract from the GPU and see what you clicked on. So we've gone back and forth about how we want to deal with this to get the rest of kind of the viewport stuff working in VR, and it's still like just kind of an open research topic for us. Probably the direction we will go is not use collision for most things, and do switch to an ID buffer rendered thing, but you can imagine, right? Like, you don't want ID buffers rendered from your viewpoint. They actually need to be rendered from their motion controller transform perspective, like basically down the laser axis, because in VR you can blind fire, you can aim behind you and select something and throw it. You don't have to see it. So it's quite different than the desktop editor where we're only caring about the pixels that we drew. So yep, that's going to be like another one to get the editor fully working that we're going to have to deal with. But it's actually good because the current editor needs kind of an upgrade with this system. So I think it will benefit everyone. It's kind of an interesting one. We talked about it a little bit with world scaling. But so you saw with Zach, when he grabbed the world with 2 grips and he'd scale and he'd see the little number, and he already gave some good feedback, like, how do I get back to my regular scale, which we're adding soon, or I have to just go into this mode just to see how big I am, because it can be hard to tell, because what is your feedback in VR about how big the world is or how small you are? It's really just your IPD, the distance between your eyes in VR, which we can freely adjust. But if you're not near anything, it's like if you're skydiving or something, right? Everything looks equally far away. Yeah, there's no point of reference, right?
It's like when you first learn to use a 3D package, you're taught very early on, make sure you're always rotating your viewport, because at some point the viewport becomes just a 2D picture to you again, and you lose track of where you are. So by rotating, you keep reminding your brain that you're in 3D. I find in the VR editor that I find myself having to scale a lot just so I remember how big I am.
Right. Yep, so this is a good one. We've talked about like having on-screen visual cues. Yannick did some prototyping. I think Yannick's on chat.
Yeah, he's in chat right now.
Cool, man.
Actually, Trung and Yannick both
Sweet.
are hanging out.
Those guys helped a lot with this stuff.
Hey guys, we miss you.
I know.
Yeah, so figuring out how to deal with world scaling, what we find is some people will, they'll fly off into the air in kind of a natural way, and then they'll scale themselves to be the size of a mouse because they just want to reach out and grab where they want to go and pull it towards them. It's kind of like what we see people do, but what that ends up causing to happen with our current interface is, you shrink down to the size of an ant, flying up like at the height of an aircraft.
It would take forever to get back.
Yeah.
So I did that a lot when I first started playing with the editor, which I don't think I got any more. Something's different than the way it was when we first launched it. It feels different somehow. Or maybe I've just kind of become a little more used to it. I'm not sure really.
It's been tweaked, yeah.
I'm not sure where the change really lies, but I find I don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah, usually it's just a learning curve. Cool. Next, so one of the kind of design pillars for this, and actually like just about everything new we do from now on, at least this is what I'm pushing, is to have the editor features expose the blueprints right away, and to make sure that they can be extended with plugins without having to kind of cut open the engine. And we have a good amount of stuff like this, but not in the editor so much. And it's a big change that we want to try and make. I don't know when we'll retrofit everything, but at least new features that we're doing, we want to make sure they're ready for this. And if you've been looking at the code and the changes we've been making in the VR editor branch on GitHub, a lot of refactoring has happened so that we can move in this direction and share more with the regular editor, have it opened up to blueprints right from the start, so that you could eventually write something that resembles what we call Blutility today, but the future version of that would be more like a blueprint-based editor plugin, so that you could script changes and add features or add your own interactions or gizmo handles or whatever. That's where we want to get to. So that's kind of this one. And then unification with editor modes. I kind of just touched on this. This is just right now we're not like the transform gizmo that you see in VR. It's not the same one that you see on the desktop. We don't really want to maintain both. We want to make one that can kind of work in both ways. So it's kind of like a little bit of a retrofit operation here, where we're going to build a new mode system that Yannick's actually been working a lot on. That is extensible from the start, blueprint scriptable from the start. Is cleaner because it's just newer, and we can unify, and it can be VR aware, in the future AR aware and desktop aware, and we can share a lot of code. It'll be awesome and happy.
Awesome.
So that's where kind of that one's going. Cool. So that's kind of the big challenges that we could think of. I guess the ones that are just like really on our mind right now.
It's funny. It almost like seemed more like a list of features, like as you're thinking of solutions for them. Like they're just that's how they're reading them. Is just like oh, it's a problem, and once they solve it, we'll have a fantastic new feature.
But we're not confident in any of our solutions yet.
Yeah,
it's more just like
we'll have to try something. And then
active research. But this is where any ideas you guys have on that, any of those things, like
I'm always checking back in like the forum thread that's like however many pages long of feedback on the VR editor to see like what's in there.
Yep. So now just talk about some stuff that's upcoming. This is maybe way beyond 4.14 or whatever, when there's no timeline for this stuff, but it's all kind of on our minds. So we want to get Sequencer into VR.
Yeah.
Yay! This is gonna be awesome. So that you can do kind of level object animation.
Like you said, like things flying around you, so you could actually see them in VR.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
So imagine like grabbing a timeline and scrubbing it while you're kind of in the midst of it.
And it's just like you're like very Matrix like style, just everything looks whooshing past you.
Actually,
in
I
reverse.
saw a very cool plugin while I was at Oculus Connect that somebody was working on that allows you to take an object and record it in real time through your scene. Their inspiration was like how little kids play with like toy trucks.
Oh,
and all
right.
that. So they would start
just
a recording session.
puppet something.
Yeah, puppet something through the scene, and it would record that and draw a path that you could edit in real time. It was very.
That's awesome.
It was very compelling.
So that will be similar to hopefully what we achieve with this. We'll start out simple. We'll get the UI in there and the basic keyframing and auto keyframing, and then we'll move to trajectories. I think the idea of
big glowing paths.
Yeah, exactly. Like a animation sequence looping, and you're just kind of grabbing a trajectory in VR and kind of moving it one-to-one where you want while you're testing the animation. I think there could be cool stuff.
Can I do the Minority Report scrubbing?
Actually, that's another thing.
We'll
kind
get
of
to
with
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want more of that stuff too. Beyond the basic sequencer stuff, I'll go to the next one because it's kind of a dependency. But right now we don't have any. You might have noticed this if you've opened up things in Content Browser. Some stuff kind of opens up a little bit weird, right? If you opened up one of your 3D blueprints, like something that inherited from scene component, it's gonna have a black viewport in there, and it's for a few reasons. But right now we don't have viewports drawing quite properly at all in VR, and it's just something we have to deal with. There's some performance issues with this too that I'm a little terrified of, but we know we have to get it working.
Yeah,
so
because that's a lot of like rendering.
we're already drawing like 2 full frames.
Yeah, and
for,
then you're like doing a whole nother one, and then you split it again.
Yeah, but
And for one's updating,
And then real time, movements.
I was thinking about that. I was wondering if at some point, and this might fly in the face of everything you've been thinking of, right? But I wonder if it'd be worthwhile to go into like an actual blueprint editing mode where your 3D scene becomes your viewport, and then you just have a window that is just your blueprint graph.
He's been spying on our meeting.
We'll talk about that one. That's coming up.
Well, okay.
Yes, I think it's a wonderful idea.
Okay, cool.
So wonderful that we're already working on it.
Well, in fact, it's the next bullet point.
That's actually, so usually when I pitch ideas to an engineer, I get one of 2 answers. Be like, dude, we already did that, or get out. So I didn't get out, so that's okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the good ones. Cool. So obviously viewports is needed for sequencer if we want to have director track, like actual cinematic editing.
Or things like taking the camera, like screenshot with an actual viewport that you move around, things like that.
A camera that's actually a camera that you're holding with a viewfinder on it.
Yeah.
And you have the full experience of dealing with that in VR. I think that'll be fun.
That iPad style like photo tablet thing.
Yeah.
Click.
Yep. So we'll get that working. So this one is goes to the kind of the UX thing. What we found is, so we did this laser thing, right, with the laser pointers, and we like the laser pointers. They're awesome for certain things, like selecting things are great. You just select it like you would a mouse. For moving things, sometimes they're not super great. It's kind of like, it depends on exactly what you're doing. They can be a little bit, they can feel a little bit sloppy, especially from a distance. So one of the things we're prototyping, and this is still a prototype, we don't know whether it will be successful yet, is just kind of like, rather than only lasers, you kind of have like these kind of smart mittens.
I'm actually really into that idea because I've been messing around with like gloves and other kind of stuff, and it would feel a little more natural than when you have the sticks. It feels a little bit like you have like the sticks with like the dinosaur head on the end, and you're just pulling the triggers, and it's just like bite something and pull it over here. It's a little odd at a certain angle, but yeah, up close that'd be great. Like just to actually grab the apple and be like, no, it's on your side now or whatever.
Yeah, and not have to worry too much about because you're adding it like an extra constraint when the user has to not only worry about positioning but the orientation of their hand.
Yeah.
And it's also, once you've grabbed something, you're now concerned with the orientation also. It basically causes things to be a little more sloppy.
Right, because you're basically magnifying whatever movement here depending on how far down.
I can make it worse for you. Like, because if you could grab stuff, something that nobody else is doing in VR, but I would love, is like when you're editing like a scene, you're like, oh, look at this thing. It's somewhat off where I want it to be. I just want to nudge it that way. I honestly just want to nudge it in that direction.
Yeah, just
I want
give
it
a
to
little
know.
push.
I want it to know it's on a table, so I could be like, and it just scoots.
That's a cool idea, yeah. I haven't heard that one
like
before.
A
You're right, no one's doing
instant
that.
physics button, just like press it, nudge, let go,
Yeah,
lock
yeah.
it in place.
So, like in my head, this all turns into like a mode that you would select, where when you go into this mode, your laser grippies, like your controllers disappear, your lasers disappear, and you go back to having the hands just like you're in the VR editor mode, or when you're in the template.
Yeah.
And then you just navigate to what you want, and then you can actually grab stuff and position it. Like,
Yeah, it's a
that
really
could be a
cool
lot
idea.
of fun.
It'll be really funny to watch yourself moving around in that mode because it'll be like a zombie crawl.
I was just thinking of cat knocking things off tables, just like
Done.
bunk.
Oh my god! you know what actually would be really nifty? No, hang on.
It's like the Zach VR brainstorm show.
No, okay, it's turned into that, but I'm blaming you for that. Like,
okay, no.
in
Because we haven't told him to get out yet.
You have a streak going. The next one's going to be good too.
In Robo Recall, right? Like you've got like the holsters where you see your guns.
Yeah.
So that's where your controllers live. So you reach down, you grab your controllers, and you have your lasers and all that kind of stuff, and you you drop them or put them back like in your holsters, and then you have your hands, and now you can grab stuff and reposition it.
I think you kind of thought about some, Lauren, you thought
Yeah.
about like
You did it. It's great.
a tool belt, like
Yeah, it's
actually
basically
around
like
your
you
belt.
go get your flashlight like actually off your tool belt kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Like the utility belt. Like you can be Batman, like another
So
popular.
since you mentioned Bullet Train and Robo Recall, this is kind of like how you interact with objects in those games, where you're not aiming lasers at things. You're aiming your hand one-to-one to pick something up. It's just very generous how it lets you pick something up. You don't have to be like exactly on the geometry. That's like more like a tractor beam.
I remember my first time, or my time playing Bullet Train, I just reached out to the guy in front of me and takes his gun. I'm like, this is mine.
It's very satisfying when you rip it out of his hands and like, bam, and it's smack.
is
It's
so
like, I'm done
good.
with you. Bye.
Love Robo Recall. It's so good. Okay, onward.
So natural tool interactions is kind of like what we were talking about, Zach, where you said you want to just dial up
Yep.
a number. It's like, how do you do intuitive things? Like, how do you pull in a menu? Maybe like what, using thumbsticks, like what actions do you have available to you that will feel natural?
When you're adjusting your brush strength for
Sure.
mesh paint, do you really want to be aiming at a laser at a slider?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the solution to that is to basically have an entirely different kind of UI for VR, where you choose the thing you want to change, and then you just have like dials and things that feel more intuitive. But
That's
like,
what this one's all
flip
about.
switches
Gotcha.
for booleans.
For booleans, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And then again, kind of like the dashboard in front of you.
Old school knife switch.
yeah, so we're really excited to work on this one. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of fun things will come out of it that hopefully make things feel more fun and natural. Whenever we can do something natural, you don't have to teach someone. It's so awesome, right?
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about VR. It's like you know how to use your hands and pick things up. That's what Tim always says.
And you always like know where your body is in VR. Like that's what I was reading about a lot. Is just like even if you can't see your hands moving, your body's recognizing. Okay, my hand is this far in front of my face, or I'm about to punch somebody next to me by scaling the world up.
Actually, it's kind of funny. Like if you did go to doing like physical dials for some of your precision kind of stuff,
Definitely.
it's weird how that would go do like a total throwback to like the 1970s and early 3D.
You're gonna have cranks.
Well, do you remember?
Pulleys.
So no, the original trench dive scene in Star Wars, like they actually had the vector version of that they used for the briefing scene.
Right.
So when they put that together, they had like this user interface that was like. It was knobs to like turn something in the x-axis, turn something in the y-axis, and that's how they built the
That's awesome.
scene.
Yep.
And it's funny that you could end up using this really high-end technology, light years past that, to go back in time and do that again.
It's similar to the music sequencing stuff, right? Like
use a MIDI pad to do random
exactly
stuff.
like an armada of knobs around you is like how music is made these
Yep.
days, right?
Yeah, just to make a Rube Goldberg machine at this point, be like, yeah, this is how we're using the engine from this point on. It's
Well,
like-
also, like, you can say you were to somehow physically like hook one of those up as an input for the VR editors, like being able to find a knob like 3 over versus like try to find a key on a keyboard kind of thing is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Snapping grids. I'm not going to talk much about this, but basically we have pretty cool ambitions for making snapping anything that can help you be more precise.
It's so much better than it was.
Yeah, it's better.
High five. So much better than it was.
So we'll just keep working on that. We have lots of ideas. We just haven't had time to execute. I think Lauren covered this one earlier. How do I type?
How do I type?
Yeah, or like, so the number pad at least is one of the things that you're going to want first. So, like I said, I did the dynamic new radial menu, so you just put all kinds of inputs in and it'll lay it out in a circle. So I want to try like a number circle, not a numpad, but like lay it out so you could just.
Like a letter circle, like A to Z, just like, oh my gosh, it's taking forever to write.
I'm having flashbacks of The Martian all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, like how do you solve like the strong bad problem of how do you type with boxing gloves?
Yeah, that's it exactly.
That's right. This is an area where we're happy to learn from other people who figure this out. Also, ultimately, like the VR platform holders will also have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Like Steam has a way to type using something like our cursor style typing prototype if you bring up the Steam menu, so you can search for a game, right? So that's perfectly cool. We're kind of just wondering what is that. I'm pretty sure it can be done better than that. Like, and there's some better examples, but it's just like what.
And it's hard because a keyboard is this thing that's been iterated on for however long.
It's so hard.
And so it's familiar, but then does it map well to VR? I don't know.
And then you see like on mobile, right? You'll have your phone and like the modern Android devices, it has so much typing assist in there. You're basically just drawing the idea of what you want to say, and it like, but with
Swipe typing's the best thing to ever happen.
And I like the idea of the assist, but then what happens when you name your variable B is a very long variable name?
That's right. It doesn't work too well with programmer jargon. The autocomplete. That's probably some massive neural net thing.
Yeah. Well, my solution for now is just the lazy one. You have a friend on the keyboard, and you're just in there and tell them what to type. It's like speech to text, except for
except with another person. Next time I need to type something, Alex, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Alex."
It's got to be more accurate than like Siri and all those, right?
I don't think I have a joke there that wouldn't be offensive. Let's just move on.
Next one is getting back to that suggestion, the great suggestion that Zach had, where, hey, I don't always just want to open my blueprint editor and be looking at this 2D plane that I position in the world. I want to go into the blueprint editor. I want to be in there, or I want to go into Cascade and be there with my particle system, and just about any asset editor like that. And Yannick, he's in chat, so you can ask him about it. He knows way more about it than I do, but we have a prototype of this working where you can you open your blueprint and you become teleported into the blueprint editor.
It's like Inception.
Yeah, you just go and visit. The level editor's still back there somewhere. You can get back to it, but you're in the blueprint editor, and the blueprint editor is around you, and the blueprint editor's native UI is around you, along with some of the common stuff.
That's usually how I work, technically, like in the blueprint editor. Like when I'm working on a blueprint, I generally only care about the blueprint.
Right. Yeah. So definitely want to support this. It's kind of one of us. It's super tricky to do well. That's what we found.
But just having the right way to like move back. How do I go back to the level editor and?
Yeah, it's tricky, but we'll figure it out because we know it's important. I mean, just to be able to. Just drawing the 3D representation of your blueprint in a viewport in your hand, that's useful for inspection, but once you actually want to do work and you need to go in there and edit components and where they're at, like...
Or say your blueprint takes you to a material, takes you to a texture, and you just gotta like...
You're just going on this trip.
Yeah.
It's like walking through a series of doorways, and it's like, oh gosh, now I gotta walk all the way back out.
Yeah, breadcrumb kind of thing we'll need. So that's another cool thing that we'll try to figure out. Okay, now we'll get even more crazy. Blueprints and graphs, we've covered this kind of already, so I won't drill down, but we want to get this working. Right now, you can open a blueprint editor and you can kind of inspect, but as soon as you kind of scroll or drag in pins, kind of breaks, we just haven't kind of gone back to it yet because we don't feel like it's the highest bang for buck feature right now, but we want it to become really awesome because this is the door to being able to do gameplay prototyping without having to take the hat off, right? And I think that's going to be really powerful if we can get the experience sort of tolerable.
Yeah, for sure.
Same with editing materials and so forth. This is kind of an interesting one where we realized, like, with all this testing of this thing, just like we've created this tool in part so that developers of VR games can leave the hat on and while they're inspecting and tweaking things, while we're actually developing features ourselves, or you want to test out, you want to just use a motion controller to move an object from point A to point B exactly without having to deal with, WASD mouse and gizmos.
Or headset hair.
Or headset hair. Yeah, that's actually a good point, right?
But it's just like putting it on and the time it takes, right?
Exactly. So if you have touch controller sitting on your desktop and the hat, we want you to be able to use the features without having to put the hat on. You can just pick up the controllers, and it's a substitute for kind of the mouse keyboard stuff.
That makes a lot of sense too, especially when you're doing like a lot of quick iterations on interactive stuff, and you just want to make a couple adjustments, interact, a couple adjustments, interact, see how it feels. Yeah, they could see how that's really important, especially with weapon design or just general level design for that.
Or like the menu prototyping. I was like, I just want to see if I got icons to show up.
Yeah.
But I got to put on the headset.
Yeah. So you're doing like the up down, just constantly type down, check. Yeah.
That's interesting that you could end up making a compelling argument for just having touch controls
in a game. Oh yeah,
And-
like a
and
rail
not a
shooter
VR.
would
For
be
development,
very
yeah,
interesting
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it's just like another device, like a mouse or keyboard.
Yep.
There's all kinds of elaborate input devices for desktop platforms, and this is kind of like a new cool one.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
I'm actually surprised that we don't see people actually kind of thinking about that. Like, I'd love to play Skyrim, like not in Skyrim because the movement would drive
But
me
you
crazy.
just wanna wield that sword.
But if I could wield the sword in one hand and like handle movement with the other, like a nunchuck, like a Wiimote kind of thing, that would be great. Just like, nah, get out of here, run away, and then not feel that weird drifting.
But
movement.
don't necessarily have to be like
5 minutes.
motion sicker kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Next, augmented reality and mixed reality. Mixed reality kind of viewing is on our roadmap. I think we're going to be working on that in the next month or two.
Yeah, we had we had some questions come in about just mixed reality support. It's coming in from TX2 line.
Oh, cool.
So
I'm not like the super most knowledgeable about it because the VR team's going to run with that, but I mean, I can try. But basically, I mean, it's an awesome way to show off things. That's like one of the reasons that I care about mixed reality.
Yeah, well, the question was just, is it coming or not? So you did it.
Yeah,
Excellent
we're good.
work. We didn't even have to consult them.
And augmented reality, we just don't really have, besides like a cell phone kind of level augmented reality, we don't have I don't have access to hardware that I can use with the editor to test with. So as soon as like the VR editor team gets access to devices, we're all about using this stuff for augmented reality. We're super excited about it because I think that kind of like your G.I. Joe little playset kind of style editing would work really well with augmented reality.
Yeah.
A lot of these tools would map nicely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a matter of time.
I've
Play with
definitely seen
virtual
that.
GI Joes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Zach's like, how do I map that up on the
Let's
list?
just do this now.
Next one is animation editing. This is something, again, like I'm super psyched about in VR. I think it's going to be really fun to kind of have these motion controls and just be able to kind of pose characters, like literally move, not just place the characters and then watch them animate, but actually grab their limbs, grab their IK handles and move them around and key them. I think that will be really powerful because,
Awesome.
again, that just moving something one-to-one in VR is so much more natural than using kind of grid axes for organic stuff, I think.
And to like peek around and things like
Yeah,
that rather
yeah.
than have to twirl around in the viewport.
How quickly could you get a character into a rough pose while prototyping a game with just like grabbing him and moving him like a puppet? I think it'll be awesome.
Also, a question was if while in VR editing mode, could we pose a character like that? So I
Max
was-
Chen, the sequencer lead, and Lena Halper, they're both like super. They're both super excited about adding more animation editing features in the engine. We have some basic ones. In Persona, you can do basic animation editing, but getting it so it's kind of world centric, and you can do it in a level viewport, and it can tie directly to sequencer, and you can scrub it the same way. There's work to be done. Trust me.
But no, it'll be great for like placeholder stuff. Like here's where the NPC will go, make him wave his hand, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Standing there. I've seen a lot of early, like you always see like those really early builds of cinematics where all the people are standing there like in the T pose and all that. So it just gives it a little bit more of something to work with. That's
I
really
also
helpful.
want this for like be able to play back animations for, again, showing people how to move their hands or their arms in VR to be able to play an animation back. is a little bit easier than trying to have them read and follow along when you're saying, okay, do this with your hands. They might not
Yeah.
follow along as well.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm also interested in where this ties into some of our other features, which are online or coming online, like the ability to pose a skeletal mesh and then save that out as a static mesh. Because then, like, you could make a
Statues.
tree, for example, or a statue or something that was a skeletal mesh, throw it into your world, edit it in VR to put it in the pose you want it to be,
Oh, wow.
save that out to a static
Yeah,
mesh, clone that off a few
awesome.
times, put another one into another pose,
Yeah.
and populate a world very
Super
quickly
fun.
like that.
Use a lot of memory maybe for all the geometry, but that'd be awesome.
But yeah,
That's for you guys. That's for the engineers to solve. I'm an artist. I don't care.
He's like, give me all the meshes.
Particle editing we kind of covered, and that, you know, if we could get you into Cascade and be able to kind of, you know, wield an emitter like a fire hose, we think it could be kind of fun. We'll see where that goes. World building, so this is something near and dear to my heart, maybe like almost more than anything else. But the ability for you to create something from scratch or prototype a world from scratch right inside the tools in either desktop or in VR. Something that we care about a lot. And you know, we have some stuff like this already. Zach made a level really quick by just placing pre-made assets. We have the BSP system, which allows you to place kind of simple geometric shapes and glue them together and subtract from one another. But that system's getting a little long in the tooth. But regardless, whatever we have, we're going to get it working in VR, because I think that's going to be just super, super fun. We know it already is kind of a sort of building the fort around you in that kind of immersive way. It ends up being really, really kind of fun. So that's kind of
I'm really
another thing.
interested to see where that goes, because I'm now so entrenched in the idea of building my worlds out of pre-made stuff, like basic architecture or even just blocks and things. Like I white box out of static meshes now.
Right.
So I'm interested to see how that could potentially change.
Yeah. It's we've actually got feedback from the team who worked on Robo Recall, in that, you know, well, their environments, they have beautiful city-like environments, and, you know, just placing things around, they often want to do some little tweaks to these things, kind of on demand, like right there after they place them. And, you know, we can do something, we can edit vertex colors and stuff like that now, but going forward, we can see maybe doing a lot more stuff right on instances of objects. But yeah, for another day. Like I said, near and dear to my heart, though. We'll be talking about it more. And then finally, I love to say this for last because it's perhaps like the most crazy one.
Oh yeah.
In that, as soon as we put people in VR, it's kind of lonely.
Yep.
And everyone's always wondered what it'd be like to have multiple participants on your team, you know, kind of in the same environment, and be able to kind of see what each other are doing, or at least their presence.
Well, yeah, because if you're immersed, you want other people to get that same thing and not just peek over your shoulder at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are folks doing this in the editor already, just at desktop level, and I've always thought that would be like an ideal way to go.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, as long as your team gets along well, it'd be much faster. But this is my pillar. No, it's my pillar.
Absolutely.
Well, this is something that, you know, we're just starting to explore, and I don't think we wouldn't implement something like that wouldn't be useful to the most professional teams. it wouldn't be strictly a VR feature if we did it.
It is interesting though. So in my role, I actually visit a lot of devs who are just getting started in Unreal, and one of the first things I always ask is, how do we work together? How can many of us work on the same level at the same time? And of course, we have like the level streaming option, and you can explain that to folks. And the more professional devs are like, okay, that's the way that Unreal's been doing it for a while, no problem. But then every now and then they're like, so there's no way that we can just have like 3 of us here in the same level, moving stuff around
In
Like,
multiplayer?
yeah,
Like in a game?
Not out of the box, not right now. But it's a lot of people ask about that.
Cool. Yeah, so it's something we're starting to explore. VR is kind of a good motivator for that, because, you know, social VR is kind of on fire right now, and it is something that you can see has value if you think about how people, especially how they prototype, but just how they work together.
Well, especially, you know, we have a team that has people in different countries, and
Oh,
you know,
that's right,
just
yeah.
being able to like work together with that would be amazing.
Yep. That's kind of all I had for slides and stuff.
All right. Well, we've got a ton of questions that have been coming in from chat, so get ready to answer some more stuff.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So you actually did a great job kind of answering a lot of these questions that have been coming in, but let's see here. Have you implemented ways to tell whether you're in VR? I like this. Perhaps a spinning top that spins forever in VR. Now that we have a VR
Inception.
tool that can build VR tools.
I kind of want like,
It is getting
what's
kind of
April Fool's Day?
Inception.
Can I put
I
that
love
in
that
there?
question. I love that question. That's
I
that's
think the
question
answer
of the
is you will
stream.
feel it on your face that you have like the whole headset on, so hopefully you can tell.
Scratch your nose.
Yeah.
Then you'll know.
Yeah, try to poke yourself in the eye. If something's blocking you, you might be in VR.
I prefer scratch your nose.
No, it's funnier to watch it clunk. All right, let's
That's
see
only if
here.
you have glasses.
Yeah, you might also be wearing glasses if you try to poke yourself in the eye.
Swizzlefish asks, the text in the browser is nearly illegible in VR. Is there any solution outside of cranking up res sampling to see it better?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. This is something that we knew as soon as we got it in there that we're like, oh god, we need more resolution. but
More
also,
pixels, sir.
there's a few things we did, right? So even the VR editor that you guys have, even though the UI looks kind of like Content Browser on the desktop, we amplify the DPI scaling when we present it in VR so that the text does get bigger, like pixel for pixel, like texel for pixel, I should say, gets bigger. Maybe we didn't crank it up enough sometimes, but again, like it's kind of hardware specific or whatever. But it's adjustable via console command if you want to mess with different resolutions. And then there's kind of two other things. The other thing is kind of we realize some of these UIs are going to need a little bit of surgery to be presentable in VR because some of them are they're rich. They're very rich UIs, and in VR, like you said, you get out of my way, right?
Yep.
Like I want to be able to maybe customize it, like shortcut bar or something, or at least just have a lighter weight.
Or like
mode
the
for some of these
favorites you
tools.
can do in details now.
Yeah, exactly. Favorites. So that's another thing. We might need to just change the UI so that we can make the text bigger. And then finally, like one of the problems is that we're drawing the UI kind of as physical, right? In the deferred shading renderer, it could be lit. Like we chose to not make them lit right now, so they're basically like a glowing screen. But
Oh, that's why the flashlight didn't light it up when you tried.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that was one of the first things when I got the flashlight working. I was like, I want the flashlight to work on the
on the
content
UI.
browser.
So we could do that. It's just as much in the world as anything else in your scene. But obviously, like we want to make sure you can see the text no matter how you lit the world. But anyways, because it's rendered just like anything else, it's subject to tone mapping. It's subject to temporal anti-aliasing. whatever else.
Post-processing stuff, if you're in the stylized map, you should go, everybody use the VR editor in the stylized map
stylized
because you get a
editor.
cool, like, cartoony looking
Whoa.
UI.
So-
yeah.
I hadn't considered that.
It doesn't do the text any favors having all that processing done to it. And we've talked about let's just draw it after all that stuff, but it's trade-offs. It's something we'll keep exploring. Some of the new HMDs have APIs where you can draw kind of overlays that will be like crystal clear compared to what we draw with the deferred renderer, but it also kind of will take it out of the scene. I won't be able to get stuff on top of that.
And
you
is
can
that
imagine
kind of like the warning label that pops up? Is that like on that layer, and so we could just like render
exactly.
on top of that, and then
Exactly.
you could like render on top of the
Right.
warning label to be
Yep.
like, you know what's happening. It's
Well,
VR.
That brings up like an interesting question. So let's say that at random Oculus comes up with a nice API that will help text render better. Would we make use of that, knowing that it may end up being like a feature that folks on the Vive don't have?
Yeah, absolutely, we would,
Okay.
of course. But this is kind of, we want to take advantage of whatever awesome thing is on any hardware.
Gotcha.
We're never going to do lowest common denominator, so of course we would. That'd be freaking badass if they could figure it out.
Yeah. And like things like the slate styling, like I'm overriding that now for the new menus. So like, I'm making headline text bigger, or we can make icons bigger, things like that.
That's
so
right. Yep, that's another good point. Just more iconography. Anyways, good question.
Cool.
We should have had that on the problems list. Text.
Text.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's a good point. And yeah, like, this is why I love chat. You guys remind us of things, Can I use VR Editor without the touch controllers or Vive controllers?
You can pop it in, but
You won't be able to interact with anything,
well,
though, right?
okay. We did add something. It's not ready yet.
Oh.
But we basically, I added this recently when Yanni got that refactoring stuff done a little ways. But basically, you can have a mouse cursor interactor. The problem is, so it works in the desktop editor with VR features on, but it doesn't work in the VR like stereo view, because we kind of need. You can imagine, right? I kind of think I know what the person's asking about. It's like you want a mouse cursor that you can move around on kind of a translucent dome around you and just click on stuff.
Trace
right?
through, yeah.
Yeah, so it's on our list. It's not crazy hard to do. We just haven't done it.
Oh, that's actually really cool then.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. What are the current plans for forward renderers dynamic shadows? I don't know if you want to talk about forward renderer and VR stuff that's been going on, but at the moment they only work with static lighting enabled with stationary light. They don't work at all if you have static lighting disabled from project settings.
You know, guys, I haven't even used it yet in my projects.
okay.
It just came online, and
Yeah, it's very early.
Yeah, that one is
Daniel
still, like,
has
as
pretty
experimental.
detailed notes. I just
Okay.
saw the notes that he'd written for the release notes yesterday, and he'll have all the the caveats outlined for sure, but
Alright.
like it's super brand new. Like,
Yeah.
so I haven't even used it myself yet.
All right, wasn't sure since VR was a little bit your area, but that one was much more of the rendering side of things.
It's just so new.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to trying it and learning everything about it.
As a feature, I don't think I would expect it to come online and have every possible feature that you'll need
No,
on
it
the first
doesn't.
day.
Yep.
All right. Let's see here. Any chance we'll see VR editor support for any devices? Oh wait, no. Ha 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 ha. I asked that one before. We're going to be seeing this show up on other devices besides Oculus and Vive,
I
and
think
the
we
answer
will.
is whatever is compatible with UE4 should also be compatible with.
Well, no, eventually, yes. Right
Yeah.
now, we special case Oculus Touch and
Mhm.
Vive because we have 3D model representations of the controllers. There's some
Yeah.
special case stuff that we're doing, and the input for the radio menu,
inputs,
for
yeah.
example, is a little different. We have to kind of adhere to whatever unique abilities each device has, haptics, all that stuff. So to add support for a new device probably is work from us. We don't want to do any more devices right now, like for example like Leap or OS VR just yet, but if you guys are using those devices, if people buy the devices and want to use it, then we'll do it right away, of course. But just kind of first things first.
Alrighty. Let's see. We've covered a couple of these questions already, so I just want to make sure that we hit the right ones. How many things have actually? I'm sure that we all have a story for this one, but how many things have been broken or tipped over since VR became a thing?
How many
at the-
drinks spilled?
Yeah, how many things have we
Oh, I
broken? People
only
have
put
we
bottled
hit?
water on my desk now. No more open cups of water because I don't want to just accidentally knock anything
Launch
over. Yeah.
Zach, you?
I set my Vive up away from my desk, so I'm actually doing okay.
Good for you.
I'm starting to use the pass-through camera on the Vive now, so
Be safe.
just so people don't sneak up on me, actually.
Oh, see, I have got the Oculus for my desk, and I'm in the office with people who like to sneak up on me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Building up that sense of VR paranoia.
Yeah, I've managed to not knock anything over myself, but I did get punched once, and another guy I was working a booth with got punched also for Bullet Train. Bullet Train makes people violent. They just start swinging their hands around, and if you have to hold the cord up, you have to be a certain like closeness to them. If they do the full haymaker out as far as they can, they'll get into your radius, you see.
Gosh.
And I saw one of our QA guys get clipped in the face, and I got clipped somewhere else. I won't say on stream. It was not pleasant, but yeah.
Does it rhyme with funk?
Yes, I guess. But yeah, we've gotten our fair share of things knocked around out here. I'm sure that if we had the QA guys in here, they'd have.
oh,
much
Wes
more.
and Sam, because they
Wes
share
and
the
Sam.
VR space. It's better now that they're in the other end of the office, but when they were both in like the narrow end of the office, there was definitely a little bit of like, oh, back of Wes's head while Sam is trying out VR.
Oh, that's gotta be rough. All right. Will support record of motion? Okay, so this one's worded a little funny, so I'll try to clean it up. Will the VR editor support recording of the motion of the controllers and HMD in sequencer, like we were talking about taking like like the
can do that
one?
now.
Oh, like being able to
fit-
pilot.
works.
I think you could do it now.
I've
if
seen
you
it
ju-
work.
Yeah, if you just turned on pawn recording,
Yep.
you could probably do it now. I'm pretty sure that like the actual recording setup is not something that would be super intuitive to do entirely inside of VR. There'd be like a
No.
little start recording from outside, then don the cap and do the
You
thing.
couldn't do it entirely in VR until we get sequencer in there.
Yeah,
first of all.
but you do have that countdown that before it starts recording. So if you can change that number. So
Yep.
you could set that to like 20 seconds, hit record. That's plenty of time to put on the helmet, get into position, and then record.
I saw some animations. Mike, Grayson Edge had this working, and he was basically like doing all kinds of crazy stuff with the controllers, and everything was perfectly recorded in sequencer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
So I know that it can be done.
Awesome.
And
Okay.
in that way, like you could take like an object that you care about that you're trying to animate, and you could actually puppet it through the scene if you wanted to, which is pretty nifty.
And just to be clear, like the sequence recorder, I guess they probably covered it a million times on the stream, but I mean, it's just it's recording transforms and properties of actors and components. So if you plop down an actor, plop down a motion controller component, and parent a mesh to it, and then set up sequence recorder to record it, and then you pilot it around in simulate mode or whatever,
Yeah.
it's gonna all just get captured just like what you were doing.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of sequencer, is it's just that simple. It's really cool. Cool. So let's see here. Andrew Tech asks, does world building include modeling? When you were talking about world building as far as using the BSP and everything else earlier in
Only so far as up to
Mhm.
what we can do with BSP,
Yeah.
and also the vertex paint and texture paint tools
Mhm.
that Zach showed off.
yeah,
In the future, I'd love for to do a lot more than that, but we'll see where we get.
All right. Yeah, that Yeah, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense. If it's not a feature in the editor itself, then probably not in also the VR space too. Like we don't have like a full 3D modeling set inside of the engine.
No, I think we're actually being careful not to add too. We don't have VR specific features, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's like very few things,
It's
like
like
the flashlight, but I mean,
the
there's no
menus.
reason that couldn't be in the regular editor too, right? Attached to your mouse cursor.
Yeah, there's very few things. It's mostly like UX type things, like navigation, transformation of objects, and UI that we have to do special case for VR.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, BioBlaze asks, and I know that this one has to be in there now, or I think we put this in there just recently. BioBlaze asks, is there any blueprint triggers or a node or some sort to identify if a VR headset is plugged in and which one? And I think that we have. Don't we have like an enum that you can
there
actually
is.
get?
There is. I've seen it used. It's used in the VR template.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you
They
open up the VR template and check out the pawn there, I think it's the motion controller pawn. I think it's being used there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for if you're wearing it or not, right now that's just a C++ function, but we could make it exposed to blueprint, so you could have a blueprint node of if the
Yeah.
person's actually wearing their headset or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That could be useful because I've already talked to a couple of indie groups, which for better or for worse have the idea of making games that are both in and out of VR.
Mhm.
So like you put on the headset for some things and you take it off for others.
Yeah, and it's using the proximity sensor on the Oculus and then the movement level for the Vive. So, yeah, we could make that a blueprint node.
Glad you guys
Alright.
knew that.
Cool. Is the editor doing anything new to keep performance at 90 FPS or above, I assume?
Good
In
question.
case you add a mesh shader that would cause performance to drop.
That's a very good question, and I had that on the list of challenges also.
Yeah.
Originally, but I figured it would come up anyways. It's really right now the way things are is it kind of just matches your project's performance. There's not really much magic we can do without degrading kind of quality things adaptively or things like that. So VR Editor works best in a project where you've already configured it to work great in VR in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Zach, you were using the Showdown content. I didn't know actually. Maybe you didn't configure the project, but there's settings that you'd want to tweak to get the VR Editor working buttery smooth too.
Mhm.
And to some extent, we're relying on. I mean, the editor's designed for you to kill performance, right? That's the whole point. You're trying things out. You're making a mess of your scene while you're learning what you want. So there's no way we can ever guarantee like 90 hertz consistently. It all depends on
Mhm.
how you want to set up your project and what you want to do. But
Like putting 100 translucent materials on top of each other,
Exact-
probably not friendly. No matter
yeah,
what you
no,
do.
no. So there's only so much we can do there.
Mhm.
We've talked about some things. The main thing we're concerned about is people unexpectedly feeling ill or something because
Yeah.
the performance just goes to crap and they didn't have enough advance warning or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we'd all rather have an error than an upset stomach.
yeah,
Mm.
but the Oculus guys have done a great work. If you saw the recent presentation on the temporal space warping stuff,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, their OC3 keynote.
I haven't got to try that yet. I think that would be really good for development tools stuff, where you can sacrifice a little bit of fidelity to render at a lower sustained rate and it still be buttery smooth. Can't wait to try that. I think it's awesome. So technology like that is just going to make things easier for all the developers doing this stuff, including VR Editor.
Cool. Let's see here. Now, this question I'm actually going to. We're probably going to want to answer with a "Don't do that."
You know that already, so
Yeah,
you can
I'm
just
looking
answer
at-
it.
Okay, so,
But, I haven't seen it yet.
A hour man, shouldn't it be an hour man? Anyway, a hour man asks, how can I prevent the user in VR from looking around during a cinematic created using a new sequencer and then go back to the default setting at the end? Don't do that.
You nailed it, Alex.
That's kind of my whole advice there is you don't grab their head and don't force them to look in a direction. That's what will make them get really ill really fast. You have to build your cinematic to be 360. You have to build it so that they're already like their forward is where you're going to show most of the display, but you have to prepare that they're going to maybe look around a little and say, oh, what's going on over here? Just keep all the cinematic in one area and they'll keep focus.
Imagine like theme park ride rather than
Yes.
movie screen.
Well, it's also you can prototype this right in the real world. If you want to show something to a friend or anybody you work with, you say, "Hey, look at that." You don't grab their head and say, "Hey, look at that." They tend not to respond as well.
So yeah, our advice there is just not that. method, but you know, just build your scene for it. Or the closest thing I can say is just black out stuff around them if it's really that bad that like the scene is just so Dr. Seussian and you need them to focus on this one thing. Just start graying out, like create like a bubble with some translucency and kind of gray it out or black it out or something.
I think you can do clever things like remove the amount of color, make the area
Desaturate
less
the world.
saturated, right?
Yeah.
And keep lights focused in one area, keep colors brighter.
And if you play a lot of games these days, this actually drives me crazy when I'm playing a game and I can see it, where it's like, oh, there's a street light, I go there. Okay, where's the next light? Look around. Okay, there's the next light, go there. And you can see it heavily in things like, there's a few games that are more modern. I think Bioshock Infinite had that, where I was like, there's the light. If I go to that, that will be the next area. So as long as you have a focal point, that's what you have to kind of do for 360 right now.
How about that? You come to an editor stream and you get game design advice. Pretty good advice too.
I like that. Bloody Bobby calls it horse blinders. Yeah, basically that.
Horse blinders.
Yeah, you just kind of want to like keep them focused, like gray things out. Don't totally mess with them too
Use
bad.
spatial audio, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Uh-huh.
remind people to turn their head in different directions.
That works so good in VR.
Yeah.
So good.
Or motion, like, oh, something out of the corner that if you want them to turn their head a certain way, like
Yep.
put a motion near the edge. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So our last little question here, because we are really over time. I am so sorry, Clint. So this one's for Lauren specifically. What is a technical writer's job?
A technical writer. So if you see like the documentation, the training streams we do on Tuesdays, tutorial videos, sample content, so things like Unreal Match 3, that's what the documentation team works on. So teaching you how to use new features, the docs that come out every week, things like that.
Yeah. Also, she makes sure that I'm not too weird or wacky or whatever, and I always ask her advice on.
That's
on how
your
to do
job.
this.
You're fired.
Failed at it.
I know.
It's a lot of work.
You know, she actually keeps me in check. This is me in check. You should see me like without like the writing team, like Ian and Sam and all of them to keep me in check, really. But yeah, those are our Q&A for today. If you guys have any final notes or thoughts. No, all
Good
right.
to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, though.
Yes, thanks for hanging in there.
Hopefully
for
it was interesting.
Yeah, I had a good time. I think everyone got to learn all the things that they wanted to learn. And as always, if anyone has any questions left over, come over to the forums under the events
I'll watch
section,
the forums.
Yep.
and just throw your questions in there. We'll try to be good about responding to them as soon as we can. Couple things to just throw out there. We've got. Do you know what the next training stream is by any chance?
I think it's more C++, the plugins, state
Yeah.
machine stuff that
Right.
Richard and Ian have been working on.
Cool. So Richard and Ian, yeah, that sounds about right. So Richard and Ian, and then yeah, next Thursday is the Epic Mega Jam results, where
Sweet.
we will do all the raffles and tell you all who won.
Is
and,
Alar still streaming?
Aller, I think he's bouncing, but he's actually streaming right now. We will host him also. Unreal Engine will host his stream once this is over. Yeah, it looks like he's still live right now.
Oh.
So hop right over to twitch.tv/awesomealler or wait here for us to start the host. But it's really great. He's still playing through them. It's like day
That's so
3
many
of
games.
12-hour straight streams or something like
Awesome.
that. It's pretty intense. And I'm trying to think of everything. Oh, and next week is the Raleigh Unreal Engine meetup. So if you're in the Raleigh area, just a heads up, there's that. Go to meetup.com/pro/Unreal Engine, and you can find us in our giant chart of different locations. Cool. That's all that we got for today. Thank you all so much for coming out. We got to talk about VR. It was really great.
Yeah,
Thank you all for
fun.
being my awesome guests. It's good to have a full
Thanks
house
for
of
having
such
us.
high energy people.
Glad to be here.
So yeah, that's it. Clint, play us out.
See you guys.
Later.